Good afternoon. This is Carlos Rodriguez. Today we're going to be talking about architecture domain awareness chat number 2. Presentation. This is not intended to replace any formal training. It's not guaranteed that using this sequence of slides and presentations that you will be certified. In chat number 2, we're going to talk about the cloud reference architecture. At a high level, it's a macro level that has the essential roles required to operate the cloud environment. Over here we have the definition of 3 activities as defined by the ISO 17789. I did get it's a document. It is on the internet that gives you a lot more description that I'm going to provide here. So for those of you that like to go into the micro level, feel free to read that document. The cloud service customer, cloud service provider, and cloud partner. We're going to look at a high level what those mean. The cloud service customer. There are 4 basic functions for this one, and there are some similarities to the other slides coming up. As a matter of fact, there is one term that is exactly the same, but basically what it is, this is the activities that are performed by the customer. There is a total of 15 roles in the 3 activities I mentioned in the previous slide. 4 of them belong to the customer, which includes the user, service user, the administrator, service business manager, and service integrator. The definitions are there from the study guide. The cloud service provider. Now this has 8 activities defined, which includes the operations manager, the service development manager, service manager. And here is one that is the exact same title yet different, the service business manager. Obviously, the service provider is looking at the business manager activities from a different perspective that the customer. There is also the support and care representatives. There is the intercloud providers, security, and network. And the third is the partners associated with what we need to do if we are going to transition to a cloud. The service provider is the service developers, the auditors, and the service broker. I will go into more detail in this section as to some of those functions, but those are the activities and the roles defined in the study guide for the CCSP testing. Now, service capabilities. This is the capabilities that cloud computing will bring to the community. Infrastructure service, platform service, and software service capability. This is just the capability of something. The definitions are there as defined by the book. The service categories. Now we're getting into the actual categories, and this is the familiar terms that we have. Infrastructure as a service, and it provides the a list of 7 activities that take place on that one. Platform as a service, it has the list of the key activities. The important one over here to mention from my point of view is the responsibility for licensing by the CSP for the operating systems and the hardware. It's the platform, so they are responsible for ensuring that they have all the licensing. All those is also defined in the 800-145 NIST regulation document. And the last one, which is software as a service. Software as a service is similar. Now you're getting all the pretty much all the services provided by the cloud computing CSP, and they also have the responsibility for ensuring that the software has all the licensing requirements that you will need. As I stated earlier, you will see in my experience, I've been noticing that terms like MAAS is defined as monitoring. That is SSAAS, which it was a storage as a service. So another one for backup as a service that has been added. However, if to the best of my knowledge, NIST only lists 3: infrastructure, platform, and software. Now we're going to talk about the models. There is 4 different models, if you will. Depends on how you peel the onion. You have your public, private, hybrid, and community, and I provided some key items there that are listed in the study guide. And I also took the definition right out of the NIST 845, and it's also in the study guide. So if you guys are reading the study guide, that will help you get it. And the community, there was no unique bullets to put there, but there was a definition. It's basically an industry-based approach to cloud computing, where basically a common industry, whether it is schools, whether it's educational in nature, they can get together to have a cloud service for their for all the business that are like similar in nature. Okay, now the next 7 slides or so, I'm going to go fairly fast through them because basically it's listing all the common aspects of cloud computing, and there is 10 of them, and I listed them over here for your reading pleasure. But the important ones that I'm going to address is portability. From my program management and operations management, this is a key, since this allows you to move from one CSP to another one. So therefore, if you're not satisfied with your provider and you want to move, you have to ensure that you have the portability to do so. That's for the first 3 of them listed here. The first one is the SLAs. Now this is more for operational, to make sure that the agreement between the CSP and the consumer has quantifiable and measurable service level agreements to ensure that you're getting your money's worth of what you're paying for. The 5th one, now regulatory. In this one, I'm not an expert on regulations, but I always make sure I have an expert in my team to ensure that I'm in compliance with any and all regulations, whether they're federal, whether they are client-driven. Many clients have policies and guidelines, or whether they are my corporation's policies and guidelines. So you usually have a small team or a team of depending on the size of the program, that ensures that you comply with every single regulation, so that when you have auditing perform on your data center or your operations, day-to-day operations, you feel comfortable that you're going to make it the first time. That is with minimal kickbacks. Number 6, security. Well, usually, especially in large accounts, you have a full security team responsible for keeping the operations and the program directors out of trouble. Privacy and auditability. This is related to what I mentioned about regulatory approach to how I run them. But over here it gives you a list of those 2 items that are right out of the study guide, so that you can get familiar with them prior to taking your formal training. Governance, maintenance and versioning, self-explanatory for all of us that have been in operations. Reversibility. Now this is This is pretty much when you're going to divorce your CSP or move to another one. And the important part over here is to ensure that as part of your service level agreements, that you have the ability to ensure that all the data has been deleted. You also have the responsibility for making sure that the data is not compromised by your side of your responsibilities. So this was a summary of the second chapter. I tried to keep everything between 10 to 15 minutes. I have taken the liberty to put a high-level, macro-level review for you to fill out as you deem necessary as you move forward to more formal training. This is the artifacts that I use. Here I listed the one of the ISO standards that I mentioned earlier, and this is the books that I've been that I acquired to study, and most of the information comes out of this study guide right here. And Google, obviously I do use Google quite a bit, regardless of I like to read opinions and understand what I'm trying to read based on others' input. If you have any recommendations, improvements that can help me, please feel free to send it to that email below to see how we can get through this one and maybe assist myself and others on getting CCSP certified in the near future. Thank you. Bye-bye.